Well, a lot better day today, sunny day at last. First real sunny day this year. So yeah, hope everybody's enjoying that. Bit of a sensitive topic today. People get quite emotional about talking about cow type. But when I'm speaking to clients and I speak at different events and things, I'm well known to always say about the right cow is the link between all that work you do and all that money you spend and your bank account. It's absolutely critical, milking the right cow. And you know, even I'm realizing quite often people don't quite appreciate how big a difference it can make to their lives. The first thing is you have to look at how you're going to get paid for your milk. So in Ireland we get A plus B minus C, just like in New Zealand. So you get paid for your fat and your protein, and your volume costs you money. Like they charge you in Ireland mostly about 4 cents a litre to pick up your milk. So it costs you that to send your milk away, but then it also costs you energy to produce those litres. So if your cows are producing at around that 7.1% versus 8.2% fat and protein, to do 2 kilos of milk solids, that's the difference between say 24 litres to do 2 kilos of milk solids, or 28 litres to do 2 kilos of milk solids. So you get paid exactly the same for the fat and protein for the 2 kilos of milk solids, but in the case of the higher volume, it costs you an extra 16 cents to send that milk, and it costs you about the same again in energy, because it costs about 1.8 megajoules of energy to produce that lactosey, watery milk once you extract the fat and protein out of it, right? So that costs you about the same again. So it's costing you some around the 30 cents per cow, 30 euros for a 100 cow herd every single day just to produce that extra volume. It's also harder on cows to produce that volume, as far as, you know, when you're pushing towards those higher output levels, it just puts more pressure on cows to have to do more volume. So certainly there's a cost to the extra volume. And so ideally in Ireland, you want to produce higher fat and protein percentages. That's absolutely critical. The other side of it is your live weight efficiencies. So for a cow that's 600 kilos live weight versus a cow that's 500 kilos live weight, that heavier cow needs to eat somewhere around, in ballpark figure, 2 bales of silage per year extra, just to maintain that extra live weight. She's also going to find it harder to walk. You're going to have more issues with feet and everything else. And of course, the longer walking distances to hilly your farm, the greater the impact of that extra live weight as well. So, you know, there's a cost to having bigger cows. In Ireland, that changes a bit when you look at what's happening with nitrate regulations, because we are restricted to how many cows you can have. If you grow a lot of dry matter, like if you're growing 14 plus tonnes of dry matter per hectare, then in a nutshell, you're not allowed to have enough cows to eat all that dry matter. So the live weight efficiencies don't come into play quite the same as they used to. Then of course, on the other hand, is the cull cow value and the calf value. So, you know, it's being really aware of what you're trying to breed. In the UK, I work with a lot of people that do get rewarded for volume. So the breeding decisions are slightly different than what they are in Ireland when you're on an absolute solids contract. So that's the first thing you need to be aware of. Look, then the emotion comes into it a lot, you know, like the calf, and there was a massive issue with trying to get rid of the crossbred calves. At the moment, that's different. So hopefully people are finding that a little bit more comforting, that there is a market for any calf. And then there's having the right cow. And I see a lot of poor breeding decisions made as far as selecting from the cows. In December, I would have analysed a lot of milk recording records from herds and done a lot of culling for clients as far as selecting the worst cows in the herd to get rid of. And so often I was culling some of the highest EBI cows in the herd. So I do not look at EBI when I'm making culling decisions or breeding decisions. I look at actual performance and how that cow looks, and making sure that we're selecting from cows that look right and are producing really, really well. Some of the EBIs cows are getting really, really high EBIs from calving on time every year, and they might actually not be doing very good production. If they're producing below 80% of the average of their age group, they shouldn't be in the herd. And quite a lot of high EBI cows are in that category, not producing very well, but calving on the button early February every year. So making sure that you're selecting from good cows, because if you've got a poor cow, and I see a lot of really, really poor cows with reasonable figures that just look like the kind of cow you wouldn't want to be breeding from, like these ones I'll put some pictures up of. You're never going to achieve anything out of that. Like, no matter what sire you use, you're not going to, like, there's a huge risk of breeding a very, very poor replacement. You want a cow that can walk, that's going to last many lactations, gets in calf every year, and is producing really, really well. So I'm actually in a herd here of a client who was very big black and white cows when I came to him. One of my first videos was actually here, and he's put Jersey over his herd for several years, and he's gone from, you know, struggling to do 500 kilos of milk solids. Last year did, I think, 546 kilos of milk solids, and you know, these would be the sort of cows that he would have started off with. So, you know, bigger cows, and then obviously these are the sort of cows that he's milking now. Live weight efficiencies are very, very different. Fat and protein percentages are coming up every year, and you know, production's going really, really well. So the target here is to sort of sit at the upper end of the middle banding, you know, so nudging that 6,200 to 6,500 litre, but trying to do 550, 560 kilos of milk solids off 700 or 800 kilos of meal at the very most, if we can do that. So that's the target here, and certainly getting that. So there's very clear targets in place, and it's very clear which cows to breed from in this herd, and the breeding strategy has been quite clear already. So then we're looking at the sire end of things, and this is where things get really emotional. Some breeding companies are going out there and just breeding from whatever looks best on paper, and they don't care what the cow looks like, you know, because it's all about fighting with the others to make sure that they're selling the highest EBI straws. And that's really, really poor. It does run the risk of making a bit of a mockery of EBI as a measure, which is, you know, like, it's been developed to try and produce the best pasture-based cows as a measure, but what the breeding companies are doing is not really optimizing that, and so, you know, I'd be nervous about seeing really, really poor cows being used to produce some of the sires, you know, I think the big difference is with New Zealand sires is when you look at New Zealand catalogues, a huge percentage of the sires have got ET after their name, like their embryo transplant, result of a really, really focused breeding program where they identify the very, very best cows in the country and really look at making sure that the right type of cow, they're doing production well in excess of their herd mates without being preferentially fed, and then they're flushing those cows, mating them to some of the best sires, and putting those embryos into recipients, and a really targeted and expensive breeding program, but that's what it should be. It should be really trying to target breeding from the very, very best cows, and it should be a targeted breeding program. And so it's making sure that you're very aware of that. I think there's some really, really great sires available in Ireland. It's just delving through the ones that are coming from really, really good dams and the ones that are not, and that's the difficult thing when you're sitting in front of a catalogue and don't have that inside knowledge. But it's absolutely critical that you understand what your target cow looks like, that you have a clear picture of, you know, the live weight, the colour, the fat and protein percentages, your target production, your target system, and what cow works best in that system, you know, and it's sitting down, analysing your cows. I often say to clients, look, just draft out 5 to 10 of your favorite, best cows that you think, you know, I'd like a whole herd like this. And it's amazing when you draft those cows out and you really take a look at it and question yourself, like, why do I like these cows? You know, what is it about these cows that I like? And then you look at the rest of the herd and you say, okay, what can I use over my herd? What sire should I be using to replicate these cows over and over again? I'm obviously highly focused on having the right stocking rate and making sure that we are focused on the bottom end of the herd, that we're not carrying passengers. It's a huge issue, I think, especially in Ireland, where so many people have grown their herds over time, and they've done so by retaining cows that probably shouldn't have stayed in the herd, and even bred from those cows, because of course you're trying to maximize the amount of replacements that you're getting, and so you're breeding from cows that perhaps you shouldn't be. And so there's always that lag of carrying passengers in the herd, and carrying a bottom end of the herd that probably shouldn't be there. And every herd has them. In an Irish situation, Montbéliards. I know some people are going to get emotional about this because they love their Montbéliard cows, but they've got such low fat and protein percentages. The energy cost for those cows to do the volume to produce the milk solids is terrible. Yep, you're getting great value for your calves and you're getting great value for your cull cows, but that doesn't make up for the loss of value that you're getting on the milk production all the way through. So that's the reality. So taking emotion out of it, and certainly I do. I prefer, probably traditionally, I prefer a black and white cow because I've always liked big and nice big black and white cows, but I like money in the bank better. And when you take emotion out of it, you know, it's just coming down to the right size, the right fat and protein percentages, and yeah, a cow that really just hangs around. If we can average 5 lactations per cow from good cows like this, then you can get your replacement rate down to 20%, and again, economically, that is huge. I think it's important to understand what you're trying to aim for, identify the bottom cows in your herd, make sure you're breeding from the top end of your herd, and that's one of the advantages that Sex Semen has really given us, is that probably people are producing the replacements from a smaller percentage at the top end of their herd, but it's making sure that you identify them correctly as well. You know, that you go, well, I'm using this sire on this cow to produce my target replacement in that next generation. This is my view, and obviously my views tend to be quite strong, but yeah, hope there's some good info in there, and thanks for watching.